Today, we are in part two of our series about finding money in your church finances and in your church budget. So, what's part two all about? Number one was commit to clarity. Number two is, drumroll please, da-da-da-da-da-da.
We're going to talk about a simple tool that every pastor should be doing when it comes to prioritizing their finances. When we talk about finding money, what we're really saying is we want money to be on the best use. We want it to go towards the things that are most important for our mission and vision. What we see is a lot of times that churches, they don't have the clarity. They're spending money on things that don't ultimately really move towards the mission, aren't funding the mission. A key point that if you get nothing else out of this episode that I want people to get is that for churches, good is one of the biggest enemies of great.
Ooh, tell us more.
We see this where churches are really good at saying what that great mission is, and they really articulate that, and they're very clear, and they have this great mission, super exciting. The problem is that when it comes to their budget, their dollars are going to a whole bunch of good things that are taking money away from the great things. So it's not usually obviously bad spending that we see. I mean, sometimes there's things like that where as soon as there's clarity, they're like, of course we wouldn't, that's waste of money. It's not usually that though. What it usually is, well, we fund this because that was good. Oh yeah, well, we can't get rid of that because it's important. And well, these people really like that. It's, it's death by inches, right? It's a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s here, et cetera. And what you don't realize is if you just said no to these things, you could say yes to this bigger item that is a dream item, but that you're not able to fund because you're funding all of these good things. So what today's tool is all about is that we're going to assess your spending and find ways that you say, how is this most aligned with our mission? Is this the thing that is going to help us get to where we're trying to get to as a church and do the work that we feel like God is calling us to do?
How do we differentiate between good and great? Because at times, especially when you're deep in the weeds of your ministry, your heart is for your community, all of those things, good and great can look really, really similar.
Yeah. So a couple things there. One is you have to define what's great. Again, I think a lot of churches have done that. They say they have a clear mission, clear vision of what they want to get to. Sometimes it is actually not clear. They can say it clearly, but they don't really know what that means. So it is getting clarity with that. Where are we going? What is success? To then say, is this item actually helping support that or not? And another thing that we see is like sometimes you just expect, let's just say your budget's going to go up 10% for giving. So sometimes you say, oh, well, just to make budgeting easier, everyone can spend 10% more, right? Well, that's an easy way to do it, but you might not need to give certain ministries their share of that. They might just need what they have. Then there's other things that you want to be doing that you could save those dollars or reallocate those dollars towards accomplishing what would actually help do what you're saying with your mission and vision.
Let me think of one of the articles that we've written for Parable about telling the story of your annual report. And one example you gave that I thought was brilliant was the church who really feels called to raise up the next generation. If that is what we feel called to, then we need to be putting our time, energy, resources into youth, into kids, into young adults, etc. It sounds like in this situation, while having fun items for an Easter service would be really cool, actually, that's just good. What's great is making sure that we are intentionally investing in our youth and young adults. That's the mission and vision, and therefore whatever aligns with that, that's where you want that 10% to go. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I'll even give a personal story with this. At my church, when I was executive pastor, youth was very important to us, and the next generation, and specifically middle school and through college. We had a ministry that was kind of under that umbrella, but kind of separated out, called Backcountry. We take these trips. We're in Colorado, so up to the mountains. Sometimes we traveled, different things like going to Lake Powell and doing kayaking out there, those kind of things, right? What we found is getting kids away in nature and being disconnected from technology, being in this, a week-long trip where they're pushing their physical boundaries, they're exhausted, it's emotionally breaking them, and we're leading them through a physical journey, like a trip, but also a spiritual journey. We saw such amazing life change from it. I mean, probably one of the most effective things we did as a church. To our shame, one of my biggest regrets is that when we had to tighten our budget for our building, at the same time, we also lost the person who was leading that. We just kind of made the easy decision to say, well, we don't have a person, let's just save those dollars. It was a really short-sighted decision, because what we did is we stopped funding one of our most important ministries, our most effective ministries, because we didn't have a better vision, or we had the vision, but we didn't have the understanding of what this ministry really was doing. We would have said it, but we weren't evaluating it from that way when we were looking at our budget and making our plans.
How many churches probably do that? Just, not even thinking.
Exactly. And when you just do a simple evaluation, I'm sure we would have said, we've got to find someone, we've got to fund this, and we can take money out of this other ministry or these other ministries. We can find the money. We really could have done it. We just weren't intentional enough with our evaluation to do it.
So what I hear you saying is, first of all, good is the enemy of great in churches. So make sure that your dollars are actually on the mission that you want them to be. And second, churches need to evaluate the areas of spending and use that to make decisions, right? And so being said, what's the solution here? How do you evaluate your spending?
We have a tool that we'll tell you how to download, but it's this really simple idea of taking all of your spending by ministry, but also just area of spending and putting it down and saying, what's the area? So it could be like, for me, backcountry, right? How much money are you spending? You go through each ministry and you put those dollar amounts, and you would want to include both like your direct ministry costs and also potentially direct staffing. If you have a leader over that area, how much money are you spending for that ministry? So you go and do that and you list that all down. Then you're going to evaluate in 3 ways. How much does it align with your mission and key strategies? Highly aligned, somewhat aligned, not aligned. How well does it produce life impact or how well does it produce impact and life change? And then the third is, what's the required investment with your resources, the cost, time, et cetera, that goes into that. You evaluate each between high, medium, and low. You could do it like 3, 2, 1, and then at the end, you're going to get a score. Then you rate those by whatever their total score is. It'd be obvious, like, hey, this one really aligns with our key mission. It really produces impact. 3, 3. Maybe there's a little bit of investment here, so maybe that's a 2. But that scored 8. And then you're going to see another ministry where you're like, we do it, but it's not really aligned with our ministry. 1 doesn't really do anything for life change. It's just kind of a club that people hang out at. 1, and it, takes a medium amount. So 2, so that rates as a 4. Well, let's put our money towards the item that rates towards an 8, not towards a 4, right? And so you just kind of have a filter to how to evaluate these and then create a score that helps you then rank them. And when you're creating your budget and you have that extra 10%, you say, well, let's put that towards our top ranking things. Let's not equally move that across all the ministries. Or even, hey, we're going to need to cut money out of our budget. Let's do that from the ones that ranked low, not from the ones that ranked high.
You just put all the information in and then boom, 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 it kind of figures it out for you.
That's exactly right.
Awesome. Okay. Give it to me straight, Dan. What is one takeaway or action item every pastor needs to take from this episode?
Yeah. Go to churchfinancemadesimple.com and download the ministry assessment tool. Get our tool, fill it out, and it will both walk you through the process and then prioritize for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dan. See you next time.
Join us for part 3.